And my methodology of teaching isn't just teaching about the text that's over there, it's interacting with the text that's right in front of me. Welcome back to Teach Through the Word, the podcast for Bible teachers. Kris Langham with you again. With me, Peyton Jones. Peyton, how are we doing?
I'm doing awesome.
As always, because you are. Jonathan Ferguson, where are you hiding? Where are you at? There he
I'm
is.
here. I'm here still. Hiding in
All
Harvard.
right, guys. Hiding at Harvard. How did they let you into Harvard? I think Jonathan's going to take over Harvard.
You better believe it.
But only on green screen. All right, guys, we are back in part 4. I think we're on part 4 of our first teacher interview, and I'm back in the hot seat. So Peyton, where are we going today with the interview?
You know what? I'm super excited about this part because we're going to geek out, my friend. We're going to talk about your study and prep for Through the Word. And I don't know. There's just something, Alistair Begg actually called it the sacred study. In other words, we often think about the pulpit as being the time where we need the Spirit to anoint us. But the sacred study is what Alistair Begg referred to as the time where you're deeply seeking God and you're in the Spirit that time as well. And so for me, I think the preparation, we've been digging into your life, like one preacher, there's a famous story of a preacher who preached this amazing sermon that was incredibly anointed. And the person listening came up to him afterwards and said, "That was incredible. How long did it take you to prepare that?" And the preacher paused and looked at him and thought for just got that deep look and said, "That sermon took a lifetime of preparation." There's certain things that are just, you're prepping, you're always prepping. You already pointed out your life experiences. God's always prepping us for what he's gifted us for. But then there's that time of special concentrated preparation for anything we're going to teach. And that's, to me, one of the best things. This is literally getting behind those flopping doors in a kitchen and seeing, watching Chef Ramsay, watching whoever the chef is, Jamie Oliver, and watching how they do and looking over your shoulder today so that we can see how you prep and maybe glean some life hacks or some things that might help us as teachers as we prep. So my first question for you today is very general.
Hold on. You're skipping the intro, man. You're cutting me up.
Oh gosh.
I got so excited about where we're going. That's good. I think if I was one of those the chefs, I'd Alton Brown. I like to get analytical and figure out the chemistry of how food works. So I think you're going to see behind the scenes in my chemistry set. But let me finish up the intro. Here on Teach Through the Word, we are here to equip you Bible teachers to do what you do better, together with you to elevate the craft of Bible teaching. All right, we had to get that done. Get equipped, get trained. While you're at it, get a behind the scenes look here at Through the Word. I got to read the whole script, man. It's good. I spent a long time crafting it. Okay, now I'm going to
my OCD appreciates that greatly. So I am in with you on that one. So, so the first thing, Kris, it's a really general question. It's just, how do you do it? How do you prep? And walk us through your process.
All right. I love when I get some time to prepare and dig in on preparation. But I got to say this, for the vast majority of my teaching life, I didn't have that. I didn't have extra time when I was doing youth ministry part-time. I was teaching sometimes 4 Bible studies a week. I preached a lot of Bible studies. I'd go to the school, teach one group night, one with I had an outreach we were doing, and then Sunday morning, and there just wasn't a lot of time. So for me, a lot of my years of preparation, my primary preparing was just listening to somebody else teach it. I had a bunch of MP3s back then. It was before smartphones, and on my MP3 player, I put all my favorite teachers, their entire catalog on my MP3 player, and I would just listen to multiple teachers teach through it. And while I was doing other things, while I was driving to one place or another, while I was walking the dog. So that for me was the starting place. And I kept that even as I got more time when I went into full-time ministry. I still kept that because hearing somebody else teach it well, and especially hearing multiple teachers walk through it and their take on it, I don't want to duplicate their sermon or their message, but just to hear their delivery, their take on it. So I still do that. I still now I've got their apps now that we move forward, but I'll listen to what Alistair Begg, what John Corson, what Chuck Smith, to what Tony Evans, so what one of my favorites has to say about it. But for now that I've got some more time, of course, there needs to be that study time. I want to study and interact with the text as much as possible. So a developed over time where it's landed now. Way back when I started teaching through Bible books, I didn't want to lose that in case I teach it again. So I started keeping these 3-ring binders. I've got these 3-ring binders. If I turn my camera here, if you're watching the video, you can see my library. I got a whole bookshelf over here of there it is, my studies, and each of those 3-ring binders is labeled with one or more. You can see this one is numbers, and I've got Bible books, and I started putting my studies in there. Well, at one point as I was putting those together, one day I decided I really want more. I wish I had more room in my Bible for notes. So I decided to copy and paste the Bible text onto a Word document and give myself the space that I always wanted for my notes. And as I did that, and I printed it out and I took my notes in there, as I did that, I discovered this is great. This is what I've always wanted. And over time, I kept doing that, but refining the space. So I'll go over this when we dig in on our basic training series at some point. But what my Bible looks like that I study from is here. You can get a look at. Here's the beginning of Titus. I've got the text in the middle with lots of room for notes. And what I have with me, I've got the Bible text and I got my colored pencils. These are my real tools here, my colored pencils. And as I'm looking through the text, I'm highlighting key words, repeated words, Bible themes. Every major Bible theme for me has a color already. So when I see that in this particular text, it's lit up in that color. And then sometimes as I'm walking through that text, I see, oh, that theme comes up multiple times. As I'm reading through Daniel, I got my purple pencil out again and again to underline kingdom and king. I realized, okay, that's what this book is about. This is centralized on kings and kingdoms. And then in my text there, I've got the Bible text on one side with some notes. The opposite page is always blank. That's my teaching page. I don't start there until I know where the message is going. At first, I'm just taking notes on the side, what I think of this, what I think is. And then when something strikes me, I need to teach this. That's where I start writing on the opposite page to fill in the blanks or to start crafting the message itself. And every time I do that, the top of the page is left blank because I don't write the intro until I have a real good sense of where it's going. I don't want to write an introduction if I don't know where the message is going. So that's kind of the inside look at my development. I haven't copyrighted anything. Anyone's free to copy that. But that keeps me centered on the Bible itself. It keeps the Bible the main thing, because it's different when my Bible's over here and my study's over here. I end up focusing more and more on my sermon. But by keeping them melded as one, and the Bible text itself is part of the main thing, I can never go too far off of the text itself.
I think that's really important because what it does for a teacher who is developing is it keeps them from making the Bible text a springboard. You know, it's funny because I always say that you're like the master through the word. That 10-minute sermon is an art form. And I know it's not exactly like a sermon, but it is a teaching. And what I love is when when I'm going through that with yours, like I was going through Journey 2, and on the one that I did on Ephesians 2, what was glaring at me was there wasn't enough scripture in it. And I was like, okay, and obviously at that point, Ephesians was one of my first. And I remember
Yeah.
I was learning how to do it back
Just
then.
to be clear for
And
everybody, Peyton is self-criticizing. He taught the Ephesians too. He's not calling me out publicly that I.
yeah, Kris, the other way I'd like to correct you on through the word. No, you're the master at this stuff, and I'm constantly learning from you how to do this, and I think all of our listeners would appreciate that. It's something that it takes more skill than even. I mean, I've been preaching for decades, but it is an art form. But after listening back to back over the last few days to Journey 2, it became glaringly obvious to me, okay, you did not have enough scripture in that one. And that's something you and I have talked about back and forth. The scripture is the main course. Everything else is the garnish. It's everything else. So, okay. So what about like other tools, other helps? I know you've mentioned Weast as being one, and in particular, that one takes you back to the actual words, word studies, the
Right.
text again. Are there other tools that you tend to use that people could learn from?
So so developing my tools over time. Kenneth Weiss is one of my favorite commentaries. Only New Testament, unfortunately. I like to read Wiersbe. I still mostly rely on the audio messages because again, it's just time necessary and I can multitask while doing that, which really informs the development of Through the Word. But a couple of things that really help me keep the main thing, and the main thing is the Bible text itself. When I write for Through the Word, that's actually different. What I described to you is preparing a pulpit message, which is I do on a written page. I print out the text and I write out, I handwrite. I like a pencil writing for for my pulpit teaching. But Through the Word, when you hear me teach a Through the Word message, that is usually a message that I've taught through multiple times from the pulpit. And I've been in three different places where I was the primary occupant of the pulpit. So I've taught through several of those books many times. I'm taking my notes then and then putting that into a written script for Through the Word. I use a program called Scrivener. I'm a big fan of it. Oh, free plug for them. I love Scrivener. It's actually created for book writers, but it's a great tool for putting together a text. When I'm writing a script, I put all my notes on the page. Some of it I handwrite out, and then when I'm ready to go to my script, my page, I put in the Bible text in a different, larger font. I copy and paste the Bible text in where it's going to go. And one of the things that I always do, one of that helps me do, the Bible text stands out. And when I see a big chunk of my script without that large font of the Bible text itself, I realize I've gone too far. I've spoken too long without quoting the Bible again. And I actually so often put back in, okay, I'm going to reference back to the Bible because it's one of my philosophies. I want my listener to have their eyes on the text. And I'm going to keep telling them, okay, look back at the text. And my methodology of teaching isn't just teaching about the text that's over there, it's interacting with the text that's right in front of me. And I want my listener to do that too. So I will read the text and then I will restate the text. One of the phrases that you will hear me say most often in my teaching is, in other words. I do that because I want them to hear the text directly and then I want them to reflect on it a slightly different way of saying it. And so I'll read the text and then I'll say, well, here's what Paul just said. And I'll just restate what he just said in slightly different words, a little more relatable, a slightly different twist on it. And then I'll dig in on one particular word that's the key word. I'm really just diving in further and further to the text. Much smaller percentage of my teaching is a story or an application that takes you aside. All that stuff is essential, but it's in the 20 to 30% range. Primarily what I'm doing, and Through the Word forces me to do this, that word count. I got to aim for a 1350 is my word count that I aim for. That gets me right about 8 minutes. That
Yeah.
word count forces me to just push more and more of the extras out and keep the text, the explanation of the text, the exposition of the text, the Bible text itself has to stay the main thing. So if I'm teaching a narrative, I'm telling the story of the text. If I'm teaching an epistle, I'm delivering the letter, the heart of the text, but it stays grounded and anchored at the text. That's my methodology.
That's good. That's good. Well, man, thanks for letting us pick your brain again and, giving us a lot to chew on here. We are out of time. So I'm
Again.
going to hand back over to you.
All right, let's close it out. As I mentioned before, time is my weakness. But thankfully, I've got Jonathan in the background telling me your time is done. So we are done for today. Thanks for joining us on Teach Through the Word, everybody, the podcast for Bible teachers. Tomorrow, we've got one more episode in our interview week. And I'll share with you some of the tips and things some of the things I tell young preachers, and we'll give you some action steps and assignment to finish out our week here. Each week here at Teach Through the Word, we bring you one Bible book or one teaching essential or one teacher interview as we equip you, Bible teacher, to do what you do better, together with you to elevate the craft of Bible teaching. Peyton, thanks for the interview. Jonathan, well done. We will see the rest of you back here next time.